Move on with a look through the top stories in the international press with Oliver. Hi, Oliver,
Hello.
back again. We're going to start off with that story from the United States. Hillary Clinton finally throwing her hat into the ring for the 2016 presidential bid.
That's right. The former Secretary of State and, of course, First Lady made her announcement in a video message Sunday. Now, she appears to be a very strong front-runner to win the Democratic nomination, if not the presidential election itself. In the New York Times, Nate Cohn says Clinton is in a far better position than she was 8 years ago. At the same stage, she's got 60% popularity among Democratic voters compared to 40% back then. There is no noticeable opposition either. There's others potentially strong candidates like Senator Elizabeth Warren, former Massachusetts Governor Derval Patrick will not be running, and all other possible candidates barely feature in the polls. Now, outside the party, it'll be a little bit more difficult. The Times says she's not a natural politician. Her past and also controversies which have been associated with her husband, former President Bill Clinton, could also catch up with her. She enjoys favourability of over 60% among the general public while Secretary of State, but since then it has actually gone down, as we see there in the graph.
A beautiful graph.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's incredibly mathematical. So she's now dipped to the mid-40s, which may not be enough to actually get her the presidency. Now, The Guardian says that while the first female president would be welcome, a second Clinton may not be, maybe less so. The Clinton campaign reportedly plans to spend $2 billion convincing the nation to embrace their woman. The Guardian says this underlines the plutocratic threat to the world's proudest democracy. The editorial also notes her support for the Iraq War in 2003 and the fact she's probably a little bit too close to Wall Street. It does, however, say that she might be a more formidable president than Barack Obama. After Obama's lofty rhetoric, America may be ready for leadership by prose rather than poetry.
And a lot of people are looking a bit further back in history as well and talking about how difficult it might be to win a presidential election after the country's already had 8 years of your party.
That's exactly right. There have been many candidates who have stumbled after 2 terms of incumbency. Richard Nixon in 1960, Hubert Humphreys 1968, Gerald Ford 1976, and more recently Al Gore in 2000. Now, in the Washington Post, E.J. Dionne Sr. says that Hillary's role model will be George Bush Sr., who actually bucked this trend in 1988, following on 8 years of Ronald Reagan. Now, he managed to rebrand himself as an education president, as an environmental president, so to show himself as being a little bit different from the man who came before him. But he also ran a brutal campaign against Democratic nominee Michael Dukakis. Hillary Clinton, Dionne says, will have to be able to put some distance between herself and Barack Obama, while also actually tackling the more extreme elements in the Republican Party, who will probably play into her hands. Dionne says that though Jeb Bush may also be running for election, it will be Hillary Clinton and not him that will be using his father as a role model.
All right, well, let's move away from those American political matters. A very international story now. This controversy about remarks that the Pope made at the weekend about the Armenian genocide that are really hitting home in Turkey.
That's right. The tabloid Hurriyet headlines on its front page: Pope 1915 crisis. Pope Francis marks 1915 genocide. They always use quotes in the Turkish media to describe it. In Sunday Mass, the Minister of Foreign Affairs summons the Vatican ambassador to Ankara. The broadsheet Zaman headlines the Vatican genocide crisis and notes that the Pope, who visited Turkey late last year, also called for reconciliation between Turks and Armenians. In the English edition of Hurriyet, Murat Yetkin says the Pope was actually only citing a statement signed by his predecessor, Pope John Paul II, in 2001. Yetkin says that though a number of countries have already recognised the genocide, the United States has not. And he wonders if the Armenians are going to try and get Barack Obama to pronounce the word genocide. He's thus far only used Medz Yekern, which is the Armenian expression meaning the great calamity, because he doesn't want to upset NATO member Turkey, which could actually freeze military cooperation at a very critical time in the Middle East.
All right, well, sticking with this story, a different high-profile person talking about Armenia, or at least visiting, Kim Kardashian.
Yes, The Guardian reports that the reality TV star has been visiting her ancestral homeland. She's attracted huge crowds in the capital, Yerevan, but also support from government officials and intellectuals for her visit to the genocide memorial on Friday. Historian Vakram Matavyozan says that at first people were uncomfortable with the Kardashian visit. This is a conservative country after all, but Armenia has never been discussed in the mainstream media like this before.
She's certainly shedding some light on Armenian matters. That's certainly true. Let's just look across the channel now to round off the UK's general election, less than a month away. The revival of a very old political party underway.
Yes, the Whigs, after an absence of 150 years, is back on the ballot. The resurrected party will field 4 candidates in the election. It's pro-immigration, pro-EU and supports the rights of renters. Paul Bradley Law is the first Whig standing at hustings since 1868. He says, "If I lose, I will be the first Whig ever to lose in Greater Manchester."
Very interesting, and we can read about that in The Independent. Thanks very much, Oliver Farry. We're going to take a short break now. When we're back, we'll have plenty more on all of our top news stories for you.